Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be unlocking the exact mechanics of your body's energy system. We're talking about optimizing your cellular energy and mastering this amazing concept called metabolic flexibility. Now, if you've ever felt like your energy levels are, completely out of your control, or maybe your body just isn't operating at its full potential, well, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down the actual biology of how you process fuel, why things might be breaking down, and most importantly, exactly what you can do to fix it. Have you ever experienced the dreaded 3 p.m. slump? Yeah, you know the exact feeling I'm talking about. It's mid-afternoon and bam, you hit an absolute brick wall. You get those really intense sugar cravings, this heavy wave of brain fog rolls in, and you just feel totally exhausted. Honestly, we kind of just accept this as a normal part of getting through the workday, right? But what if I told you that this afternoon crash isn't just a sign that you need another cup of coffee? It's actually a blaring, flashing warning sign of a modern energy crisis happening right inside your cells. So to really understand that crisis, we first have to look at the baseline of a healthy human body. And that brings us to metabolic flexibility. In the simplest terms possible, it's just your body's capacity to adapt, seamlessly switching gears between burning carbohydrates, which is glucose, and burning fats or fatty acids. Think of a healthy, flexible metabolism like a really advanced hybrid car. It just automatically switches between electricity and gas depending on the driving conditions without you even noticing. Now, when you eat a high-carb meal, a metabolically flexible person can burn that glucose super efficiently. Their body processes the sugar, uses it for immediate energy, and completely clears it out of the bloodstream. And then, and here's the really magic part, during periods of fasting, like when you're sleeping or maybe during a tough workout, their body seamlessly clicks over to burning stored body fat. There are no massive crashes, no severe cravings, just a smooth, continuous transition right from one fuel source to the other. But here is where that hybrid engine breaks down. We're living right in the middle of a modern crisis of metabolic inflexibility. Think about it. We're constantly grazing and snacking. We're consuming these unprecedented amounts of processed sugars, and we literally sit at desks all day long. This lifestyle completely breaks our ability to switch gears, and the long-term risks here are severe. This inflexibility is a direct precursor to really serious conditions. We're talking type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and widespread systemic inflammation. It's not just about feeling tired in the afternoon, it is about profound long-term cellular damage. Now, what's really interesting about this is the biological culprit trapping your body weight. It's something called the insulin lock. When we eat frequently, especially sugary or starchy foods, our insulin levels stay chronically elevated. And insulin, remember, is an anabolic hormone. It literally tells your body to store energy. So when insulin is constantly high, it effectively padlocks the door to your fat cells shut. Your body is screaming for energy, but it physically cannot access your stored body fat. This is exactly why you can be in a strict calorie deficit, working out, practically starving, and still struggle to lose a single pound. Your fat is literally locked away by insulin. To solve this medical mystery, we have to zoom all the way into the cellular level. I want you to meet your mitochondria. These are the microscopic power plants inside your cells. And ultimately, your metabolic flexibility is really just a measure of the health of these tiny structures. Healthy mitochondria are highly, highly adaptable. They can take pyruvate, which comes from the carbs you eat, and process it into energy, but they can also take acetyl-CoA, which comes from fats, and turn that into energy just as easily. But what happens when we abuse the system with all that constant snacking and sugar? Well, the power plants get damaged. You literally develop rusty mitochondria. They lose the physiological ability to process fat effectively. And when you can't burn fat, what happens? You become entirely sugar dependent. Your body relies solely on that quick burn fuel of glucose. So the second your blood sugar drops, actually, even if it just dips slightly, those rusty mitochondria absolutely panic. And that is exactly what causes that massive 3 p.m. crash and those overwhelming sugar cravings we talked about. So how do we fix it? Here are 3 steps to flexibility, healing your power plants. All right, strategy number 1 is glucose smoothing. And science shows us it's not just about what you eat, but the exact order you eat it in. First, you eat your fiber, so think salads, greens, or cooked vegetables. Second, you eat your proteins and fats. And finally, last in line, you eat your carbohydrates, like your starches or your sugars. Now, why does the order matter so much? It's all because of what that fiber does mechanically inside you. When you consume greens first, that fiber travels down and literally coats the upper part of your small intestine. It creates this viscous, mesh-like filter. By the time the carbohydrates from the end of your meal actually reach your stomach and intestines, this protective mesh slows down gastric emptying. It physically restricts how fast the glucose can be absorbed into your bloodstream. So you still get the energy from the carbs, but without that massive insulin spike that locks up your fat cells. All right, strategy 2, zone 2 training. While exercise is definitely the primary driver of metabolic adaptation, you gotta remember that not all exercise is created equal. High-intensity intervals, for example, force your body to burn glucose. But to burn fat, you really need to target 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. That is zone 2. It's a low to moderate intensity exercise. Think of like a brisk walk, a light jog, or a steady bike ride. And honestly, the easiest way to know you're in zone 2 without a fancy heart rate monitor is just the conversation test. You should be breathing a little heavy for sure, but you should still be able to carry on a conversation with the person next to you without gasping for air. So the crucial point is why this specific intensity works. Zone 2 training specifically targets your type 1 muscle fibers, also known as slow twitch fibers. And these fibers are incredibly rich in mitochondria. When you train in this steady, low-intensity zone, you are literally forcing your body to look past the glucose and use fat as its primary fuel source. Over time, this specific training doesn't just clear out the rust. It actually signals your body to build brand new, highly efficient mitochondria. You are literally multiplying your cellular power plants. And finally, we have strategy 3, time-restricted feeding. We know that elevated insulin completely prevents fat burning, right? Well, fasting is the absolute fastest way to drop insulin back down to baseline. Let's walk through the timeline together. At hour 0, you finish your last meal of the day, let's say it's dinner, and the fast begins. Now, for the first several hours, your body just digests and uses the glucose from that meal. But right around the 14-hour mark, your liver-stored glucose, which is called glycogen, starts to run completely empty. And as we approach 16 hours, an amazing thing happens. Because the sugar is gone, your body is forced to flip the metabolic switch. It starts burning body fat to keep your brain and heart running. And at the exact same time, it kicks off a process called autophagy, which is basically this internal cellular cleanup crew that goes in and clears out damaged proteins and all those rusty mitochondria. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate health payoff of optimizing your flexibility. First up, stable cognition. Your brain absolutely prefers a steady supply of energy. When you finally stop that glucose roller coaster, the brain fog just completely vanishes. Second, increased longevity. Lowering chronic insulin is directly correlated with reduced markers of cellular aging. And finally, physical performance. For athletes, becoming fat-adapted means you can access literally tens of thousands of calories of stored fat while training. It allows you to go way longer and way harder without bonking or hitting the wall. So, think about the very next meal you're going to sit down and eat today. What are you going to eat first? Are you going to reach for the breadbasket and trigger that insulin lock? Or will you eat the greens, build that protective fiber mesh, and start smoothing out your glucose? You now have the exact blueprint to heal your power plants and completely reclaim your energy. So the only question left is, are you ready to flip your metabolic switch?